Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Today, we'll celebrate one of Britain's great explorers and the very first apple parer. We'll learn about the wonderful willow, and we'll celebrate the very first field trip of the Philadelphia Botanical Club, which happened 128 years ago today. Today's Unearthed Words feature poems from the author of Anne of Green Gables. And we grow that garden library with a book that essentially offers an herb seasoning masterclass in between its pages. I'll talk about a garden item that comes in handy for gifting natural elements from the garden, along with a whole host of other uses. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of a woman who married a botanist and then wrote about her adventures with him. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. Here's today's curated articles. First up is a post from Joyous Garden, Nell Foster, and it was called 10 Ideas for What to Do with Broken Plant Pots. This post caught my attention because I actually have a basket in the garden where I put all of my broken pot pieces, and then when I need them, I know where to find them because I love finding new uses for old items. And Nell features 10 wonderful ideas, and I guarantee you at least one of them will strike your fancy. So, whether you nestle it, fill it with herbs, stack it, lay it sideways, create a layered planting. I loved the image that Nell found for this idea. Or add cactus or succulents. The options are endless. If you're looking for inspiration for what to do with your broken pots, you've got to check out this post. If you'd like to read it in the Facebook group for the show, just search for the word broken when you're in the group, and this post will pop right up. Then next up was a post called The 10 Benefits of Growing Chives. And this was from Colleen over at Grow, Forage, Cook, Ferment. I have chives growing right outside my front door, and my old neighbor Jolie used to come over all summer long and just take little clippings of my chives so that she could use it in her cooking. That was totally fine by me because I have so many chives, and that's what they're there for, to get used. When I read Colleen's post about the benefits of growing chives, I was reminded of a few that I'd kind of forgotten, especially now in the off season. Colleen points out that chives are perennial, they have a long growing season, and they're the perfect garnish, whether you're putting them on potatoes or your Thanksgiving dinner or eggs. Eggs are perfect with chives. From a gardener standpoint, chives are great because they attract pollinators and they have edible blossoms in addition to tasty greens. And Colleen reminded me that chives are high in vitamin K and vitamin A. Now, if you'd like to check out all 10 benefits of growing chives in Colleen's post, just search for the word chive in the Facebook group for the show, and Colleen's post will be right there for you to read in detail. Now, if you'd like to check out any of the articles that I curate for you and share on the show, you can do so easily by joining the free Facebook group for the show. It's called the Daily Gardener Community. And to join, it really couldn't be simpler. The next time you're in Facebook, all you have to do is remember to search for the Daily Gardener Community. Just head on up to the search bar, type that in, and then request to join. Then I'll get a notification on my phone. I'll admit you into the group, and it's just that simple. Then you're in, and all of the articles that I curate and handpick for you and for the show will just start to pop up in your Facebook feed. This means for you, there's no need to take notes or search for links to any of the articles that I mention on the show because I make sure to put them in the group. Now, if you'd like to share things with me or other listeners while you're in the group, that is totally fine. So, whether it's a garden poem or a garden article, or even pictures or questions from your own garden, all of that is fair game and fun for me. So, feel free to share away. Here is today's brevities. Today is the anniversary of the death of one of the great British explorers, and he commanded a vessel called the Endeavour, Captain James Cook, who died on this day in 1779. At the age of 26, Cook joined the Royal Navy, and he quickly drew attention to himself with his superior map making skills. Later, when Cook took command of his own ship, he was usually accompanied by artists, scientists, astronomers, and botanists like Joseph Banks, who accompanied Cook on the first successful voyage to Australia. A year later, Cook sailed again, but this time Banks would not be going. Instead, a German botanist would accompany him, Johann Reinhold Forster, and his son George. Captain Cook's death on this day in 1779 in Hawaii was gruesome. Angered when Hawaiian natives had stolen one of his cutter ships, Cook had ordered his men to seal off the bay. He then went ashore at the north end of the bay and asked the king and his sons to come away with him as his hostages. The king's wife broke down crying and begged him not to go with Cook. The king's people suddenly rose up and defended him and threw stones at Cook. Meanwhile, on the south end of the bay, a high ranking chief had tried to break through the barricade. Cook's men shot the chief, and a battle started that swept up the bay just as Cook was attempting to leave the king. Cook signaled for the boats to come and get them off the beach, but it was too late. As Cook was making his way to the shore to escape, a native clubbed him with a piece of fencing and ran off. As Cook attempted to rise, another native stabbed him in the back of the neck with a dagger. Then another native held Cook's head under the water as he was killed with clubs and stones. Afterward, the islanders prepared a royal funeral for Cook. They removed his hands from his body and preserved them in salt. The rest of his body was roasted in a pit so that his bones could be picked clean. Last year, the Australian government announced they were budgeting $50 million to redevelop Cook's 1770 landing place. The plans included turning the area into a major tourist attraction and included the addition of a $3 million statue of Captain Cook. And the Australian treasurer, Scott Morrison, said it would be a place of commemoration, recognition, and understanding of two cultures and the incredible Captain Cook. The redevelopment is slated to be ready this year in 2020, just in time to mark the 250th anniversary of the landing. And on this day in 1803, a patent for an apple paring machine was given to Moses Coates of Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Over the next 100 years, 150 different patents would be issued for apple parers. Most would just be variations on the original Coates machine. The parer that Moses Coates created was a cranked wooden gadget that had a metal blade and prongs that would hold an apple. Incidentally, Coatesville, Pennsylvania was named by Moses Coates, and Moses patented a number of pieces of equipment, including a machine that was used to cut straw. Before the invention of the apple parer, people used to host apple harvest festivals. And of course, all the apples would be pared by hand. The apple slices and quarters would end up in huge kettles that would have to be stirred all day for about 8 hours. And then, when the mixture turned dark, biscuits would get made, and then everyone would line up for a biscuit with a slab of apple butter. And on this day in 1856, Henry David Thoreau wrote in his journal about a natural willow hedge. He starts out by talking about how it's self seeded there. I was struck today by the size and continuousness of a natural willow hedge on the east side of the railroad causeway. Some 12 years ago, when that causeway was built through the meadows, there were no willows there or near there, but now quite a dense willow hedge has planted itself. I used to think that the seeds were brought in with the sand from the deep cut in the woods, but there is no golden willow there. Now I think that the seeds have been blown hither from a distance and lodged against the foot of the bank, just as the snowdrift accumulates there. They plant themselves here solely, and not in the open meadow, as exclusively there as along the shores of a river. The sandbank is a shore to them, and the meadow a lake. Next, Thoreau talks about how vigorously willows grow, how impatient, how rampant, how precocious these osiers. They have hardly made 2 shoots from the sand in as many springs when silvery catkins burst out along them and anon golden blossoms and downy seeds, spreading their race with incredible rapidity. Thus they multiply and clan together. Finally, Thoreau talks about the character of willow. May I ever be in as good spirits as a willow. How tenacious of life, how soon it gets over its hurts. They never despair. They are emblems of youth, joy, and everlasting life. Scarcely is their growth restrained by winter, but their silvery down peeps forth in the warmest days in January. Well, there's no doubt Thoreau was a fan of willows. Willow trees are native to northern China. They can reproduce from seeds, broken twigs, or even leaves. And they are a speedy grower. Willows can grow 10 feet in a single year. In the spring, weeping willow's silver tinged green catkins appear on the branches. The fuzzy catkins either contain male or female flowers, depending on the sex of the tree. Now, you can force cuttings of willows to bloom by bringing them indoors, and it's wonderful to watch the catkins open and flower in a simple vase of water. And don't forget to save your willow water for rooting. Willow water contains a natural rooting hormone, a mix of 50% fresh water and 50% willow water is an excellent solution to get cuttings to root. And today in 1892, the Philadelphia Botanical Club took its very first field trip to Bartram's Garden. In 1850, Andrew McCullough Eastwick An engineer and the inventor of the steam shovel bought the 46-acre Bartram estate from John Bartram's granddaughter, Anne Bartram Carr. Eastwick had banked a personal mint after building railroads for Tsar Nicholas I of Russia. Unlike the fate of many old homes, Eastwick decided not to tear down the existing Bartram house. Instead, he kept the Bartram family homestead as a memorial, building his own mansion beside Bartram's. He also made sure that the historic garden was kept intact, and he vowed never to harm, quote, one bush planted by the Bartrams. In 2015, Bartram's Garden in Philadelphia was designated a horticultural landmark by the American Society for Horticultural Science. The prestigious award selects locations based on their historical, scientific, environmental, or aesthetic value. The award was first presented to Monticello, home of President Thomas Jefferson, and other recipients include Longwood Gardens, the Missouri Botanical Garden, the New York Botanical Garden, the Arnold Arboretum, and the Fairchild Botanical Garden. In Unearthed Words, here are some wintry poems from the beloved author of Anne of Green Gables, Lucy Maud Montgomery. This first one's called The Garden in Winter. Frosty white and cold it lies underneath the fretful skies. Snowflakes flutter where the red banners of the poppies spread, and the drifts are wide and deep where the lilies fell asleep. But the sunsets over it throw flame-like splendor, lucent glow, and the moonshine makes it gleam like a wonderland of dream. And the sharp winds all the day pipe and whistle shrilly gay. Safe beneath the snowdrifts lie rainbow buds of by and by. In the long, sweet days of spring, music of bluebells shall ring, and its faintly golden cup many a primrose will hold up. Though the winds are keen and chill, roses' hearts are beating still, and the garden tranquilly dreams of happy hours to be. In the summer days of blue, all its dreamings will come true. Then here's her poem called A Winter Dawn. Above the marge of night, a star still shines, and on the frosty hills, the somber pines harbor an eerie wind that crooneth low over the glimmering wastes of virgin snow. Through the pale arch of the orient, the morn comes in a milk-white splendor, newly born. A sword of crimson cuts in twain the gray banners of shadow hosts, and lo, the day. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, A Taste for Herbs by Sue Getz. The subtitle to this book is A Guide to Seasonings, Mixes, and Blends from the Herb Lover's Garden. Sue's book helps you become an herbal taste master. And the preview of this book challenges us to think of this book as an herb seasoning master class filled with simple secrets for capturing the power of flavor from your herb garden. And here's how Sue describes her book. She writes, in these pages, you'll find all you need to know about 20 of the most commonly used and flavor-rich herbs, how to grow them, which is easy, the best varieties to choose, what parts to use, plus essential information and tips throughout. I'll take you step by simple step through harvesting and preserving the herbs and capturing all those precious flavors. And as promised, there are the recipes, over 100, showing you how to flavor, mix, mingle, and blend herbs into almost any meal. The big takeaway is that you become a creator of flavors, a master of blends, an infusion maven, and you deepen your relationship with the plants that you bring to your table and the garden that produces them. Now, this book just recently celebrated its 1 year anniversary on February 1st. And today, you can get a copy of A Taste for Herbs by Sue Getz and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for under $8. And here's today's great gift for gardeners. It's a jumbo roll of brown craft paper, which comes in really handy this time of year. It's ideal for gift wrapping, for natural art, for packaging up bouquets and plants from your garden, and for wrapping traditional presents with a natural garden feel. This is my favorite wrapping and packaging. This simple brown craft paper is unwaxed and uncoated. It's totally eco friendly, and it's my favorite go to wrapping paper. And it's a great deal to boot. You get 100 feet, and it's 20 inches wide. And another thing I like to use it for is on the table as a table runner. And a sheet of this paper on the potting bench makes for quick cleanup. You can get a jumbo roll of this brown craft paper and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for $13.89. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Today is the birthday of the English writer Eleanor Constance Rundle Bohr, who was born on this day in 1897. Eleanor is remembered for her book, The Adventures of a Botanist's Wife. It's a book I own multiple copies of. It's a personal favorite of mine. In 1931, Eleanor went to India, where she married her Irish botanist husband, Norman Bohr. Norman became the director of the Forest Research Institute at Dehradun after establishing himself as a world authority on Asian grasses. He and Eleanor returned to England, and Norman accepted a job as the assistant director of Kew Gardens. Back home, Eleanor wrote and illustrated her book, which was all about their time together in India. In 1952, a newspaper in Melbourne, Australia, featured Eleanor's book in an article called On Top of the World. She wore sand shoes for a simple reason. They were the only comfortable shoes she could buy in Shillong, and since she was determined not to miss any of the mountain trips made by her botanist husband, she accepted the shoes. Surprisingly, they proved comfortable, and as she clambered around the incredible cliff edge paths, thousands of feet above deep Himalayan gorges, she was grateful for the firm grip of the rubber. Mrs. Bohr had expected to share exciting plant discoveries and at least to give her name to a rare orchid. Instead, she found her husband was a specialist in grasses, and it was a new species of grass, extremely rare, but to her looking no more than a, quote, mangy bit of fur that finally bore her name. Once on a mountain Stepping from mist and snow, they saw below them on the white mountain slopes a blaze of rhododendrons and magnolias. And in their camp that night, they burned rhododendron logs. Their mountain trips were often dangerous. Mrs. Bohr hated crossing the cobweb like cane bridges strung hundreds of feet above foaming torrents. The Rupa Bridge was especially terrifying, with only strands of a cane for a foothold and tall hoops set a yard apart for the hands to grip. More menacing than the cane bridges and the cliff tracks were the insects. Wild animals were not alarming to her, but the hornets, centipedes, horseflies, dim dams, and above all, the leeches made camping in the jungle foothills a nightmare. One reviewer wrote, "Here is a story told with the charm and simplicity of a life spent in the foothills of the Himalayas, where Eleanor Bohr and her botanist husband tramp through the jungle terrain, establishing friendly relations with hill tribes and villagers, discovering the enchantments of mysterious undergrowth, and carrying with them the domestic problems of household pets and family happenings. Their years in the jungle, as told by the author, are those of a true traveler." Eleanor ended her book by talking about her hopes and fears for the future of Tibet. She wrote, "Even while we were there, we guessed that Tibet could not much longer maintain her isolation. Now Tibet is to be set free from the tyranny of the Middle Ages. She is to be given the blessings of a civilization that knows by instinct the sort of person likely to poison a llama, a civilization that reaches higher than the highest mountains in the world, a civilization that reaches up, if not quite to the stars, at least as far as the dense cumulus of the newest kind of bomb. The highest plateau in the world is no longer safe from the rising tides of progress, tides that may yet submerge the people of Tibet as if their land lay once again beneath the ocean rocks from which the mountains rose." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media: Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great President's Day weekend, and I'll be back on Tuesday.